Good day, everyone. Today I have Arnold with me, and we'll be looking at functions in Python.
Yes.
Let's go straight to it. Functions are named blocks of code designed to perform specific tasks. Task. They allow you to write code once and reuse it throughout your program, making your code cleaner, easier to test, and more organized. Okay, so now we have defining and calling a function. A function is defined using the def, which means define, keyword to execute the code inside. You call it. In case you want to execute, you call the function by using its name, uh, followed by parentheses. For instance, we have an example here which says greet user function. So here is the parenthesis at the end here that helps us to call the function. So let's copy this and let's run it quickly in our terminal. Let me copy this and run it in our VS Code. So we can see over here the greet user function with a definition here that shows that it's a function. So this display a simple greeting. Now what we have here is just we call this a comment, a multi-line comment using the three um, quotation marks. Yes. It's just like using a hashtag. So what the only thing it does is to print hello. That's why when you look in our terminal, what I've highlighted here, it says hello. That's what we've done. It's a function. You declare this function once and you can access it so many times. You don't have to keep creating different things the same because you have it declared here. So all you can do is just to call it. When you're calling it, you have to remember to put in bracket open and bracket close because this is a function. Okay. We have what we call arguments and parameters. And this is also a very nice concept to understand. While some people may plead to differ that arguments is the same as parameters, but it's nice to know the difference. Okay, we have parameters, a variable in function definition. So when we look at in our function, for now we don't have any parameters in there. We'll be looking in here. Okay, now when we look at our example on our Google Gemini, we can see it takes in a parameter, which is a username. And now we can use our username within the function. So this is what the parameter is. And now, so you can think of a parameter as a placeholder. That's like an empty variable that is going to be used. Yeah. And now let's look at arguments. So now argument is now the actual value. So it's like the actual value itself that is passed in the function during the call. So you can see in our example here, we have greeting user, which is Jesse. So now, Jesse now, which is an argument, when it goes into the function, it's now going to be the parameter, which is going to be used within the function. So we could copy it and run it quickly to see the output of it, and then let's see. Let's see. Copy it and paste it here. Okay. So basically, this is what we have here. This was supposed to be a multi-line because of the syntax. It's very important. Let's see. 18, 18, 18. Let's focus on the one that we really want to work with. Okay, so now we can see over here the we declared a function here using a def keyword. Now we call Jesse. We call the function. We call the greet user function and then we pass in an argument, which is Jesse. So Jesse now comes in here, and then the function uses Jesse. So it says hello, and then it prints out Jesse. But we have the title method here, which capitalizes. It changes the first character into an uppercase. So when we run the code, we say we see over here it says hello Jesse. So that's how it works. So functions basically allows you to put in values. And sometimes it could be multiple values. So now we say on number 3 from here it says passing argument. There are several ways to send information to a function. Now we can use that by positional arguments, which means the order of the argument. That means you're putting in multiple arguments in there. Okay. It has to be matched based on the order, and the order really matters.
Yeah.
Mm. And we have keyword argument, whereby, for instance, you have username, then you put in the username in here when you're calling it. Then, for instance, the age, then you say user age equals, yeah, then the age. And you must make sure that the name that you name it in the parameter, it must be the same as the one in the when you call in the function. We'll look at an example over here very quick. So this is an example. Let's get this example here and run it quickly. This example here is for the default value. Let's copy this. Let's paste it here. So now we can see this is called, it's an example. We all of the 3 examples. So now we have 3 examples, three options. We have positional argument, we have key argument, and we have default values. So that is what is happening here. Yeah. So now we're looking at the first option, which is well, we're first looking at default values. So now we have when we call it the describe pet. So now we have pet name, which is Willie, and we have the type of an animal type, which is a dog. So you see it. So the reason why we have it like this, just in case you didn't put in the, let's run this to see. I have a dog named Willie. So you see it. So just in case you didn't put the animal type here. Okay, sorry, just in case you didn't put this, uh, let's say I eliminate this and let's rerun it again to see. So it still says I have a dog named Willie. So you see how it works. So we put in this one. Yeah. Just in case you didn't put in it knows that that's gonna be a dog. Let's take away the dog from here and run it again. So you see it. So this has been able to spare us. Now we have only the name here, and let's try it again. Describe, and let's put in another name. Let's say Husky, or let's any name. So Mark. Okay, that's fine. Let's run this. So now you say I have a dog called Mark because we have our second parameter. We've given it a default value. So that is the first scenario. That's why we say default value. But in case you put in another parameter, this time around you don't want it to be a dog, you just say a cat. So now we're gonna have an output here that says I have a cat named Mark. You see it? So basically that is it. That is the use of the default. Just in case you didn't put any second parameter, it knows what the second parameter is gonna be. So this is just an example. And now let's look at the other example, which is the key argument. Let's look at the key argument. Let's look at the key argument. So we're gonna copy this example here. We run it quickly. See the output. Yes. Okay. It's very important to okay. Keyword. Okay, it starts from here. I think it should be a continuation. Okay, let's look at this one. What is happening in this place? So it starts there and ends there. So example of all the three, you can see this item. Definition with the default value for animal type. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, let me copy from here to here. I think this will work. Let me copy from here. Is this? Okay, that's the example we did the first time. And let me copy this one as well. And then let's push this here. So, okay. So the first one here is the positional um style because the position is very important. Yeah. The second one is just
Yeah.
the keyword. The second one is the keyword, and then the third one is the default. Just in case you didn't have the second argument, yeah, it's gonna put in the default for you. So when we use the keyword, the position doesn't really matter when we use the position because we can you see over here it starts with animal type, then it says hamster, then it says pet
Yeah.
name. Yeah, because usually when you look at the function definition, pet's name comes before animal type. But in line number 3, because we're using the keyword, it doesn't really matter the order of putting in the argument because the you putting the key value in the nicely. So basically, that's the gist of the three different options of passing in arguments to a function. Yeah, we have the return key um, value. Sometimes in a dictionary, maybe you don't want to print something out, but you want an operation to run and then you store everything within and you pass in. Okay. So sometimes you wouldn't want to just print out the output, but you want to hold it and store it. For instance, in complex mathematical operations, you want to store your value in in a variable so that you can use it later. So you can use the return keyword to hold it for the meantime before you print it out later if you want to. Okay. The functions don't always have to print an output. Yes, of course. They can process data and return a value or date or a data structure. Mm. Yeah, they can also print out a
Yeah.
dictionary. Yeah, back to the line that is called. Yes. So wherever you called it is going to store that value. Whatever happened in the whole dictionary is going to return it to that line where you called it and store it in the variable, provided you've created a variable for it. Okay. So there's a simple example here. And let's copy this and run it to see the output of it. So copy, paste. Okay. And our syntax is very important. Let's take this out of the function scope. And let's take this down here. Okay. So we have a simple function here which gets name, right? Which gets formatted name.
Hmm.
Yeah. So basically, it takes in two parameters. There are two parameters here. So you pass in your argument and then you return. Let me do this. a good syntax. So basically what is happening here, our function is going to take in your first name and then your last name. And what it's going to do to it is going to convert that into uppercase, capitalize. It's going to capitalize it for you, and then it's going to store it inside musical, because this is where the function was called, right here. So you can see in our text here, it says what? It takes it back to the line where it was called. Yes. So that's line number 4. So that is going to be stored in musician. So when you see musician here, the output should be Jimi Hendrix. So let's run a code to see how it looks. So we can see Jimi Hendrix. So what we did here was Jimmy was in small letter, Hendrix was in small letter. Because of the use of a title, it converted um, over here those individual names into, yeah, it capitalized them. Regardless of this whole thing being a string, it's not just going to consider only the first name and leave the last name. This is being applied to both the first name and also the last name. So that's how it's done in here. Yeah. And we have example of using a return, because yeah, so you see over here the return. So in this case, we are not printing out the name. We are returning it, and we're printing out later in a later stage when we feel like printing it out. In case it's like some numbers, we could just use those mathematical things later to do some other calculations. Let's look at the second example, which is returning a dictionary. So this time around, we are not just returning a string, we're going to return a dictionary. So let's copy this and we paste it here to see, and our syntax matters. So let's fix the syntax. Person, now line number 7, column. Okay, so basically this is what is happening. Line number 1 is where we are defining a function. We are building a person. So we have, it takes in the first parameter is the name, the first name, and then the last name, and then the age. But we have age and none, just in case there's no age that is being passed in there. It's gonna return none. But in case you put in the age, it's gonna be that age that you put in there. So line number 2 is where we create the person dictionary, the person object within the dictionary. Oh, so within the function, sorry. We created within the function. Yeah. And it checks in case there's an age. In case there's an age, it's gonna be true. But if there is no age, it's gonna be um false, right? Yeah. But by default it's gonna be none. You see it over here? Yes. And none is like undefined. And none, the reason why we say none here, because none is falsy. When we look at yeah, truthy or falsy, because none is equivalent to an empty something. So none will also cause this not to run. But provided there's an age, what is going to happen is that the person is, is there's a key called age that's going to be created in that person object, and then in that person dictionary, and then the value that we passed in is going to be assigned to that age key. So these two shouldn't be confused. These are two different things. This age here in the blue is our key, and the age in the orange is our value. So that's what we do. And at the end of it, we return a complete person. So now And you see in line number 7, this is where we store the complete user, we complete the person that we built into the user variable. So after running this, you realize that nothing is going to happen because we haven't printed anything out. Let's run it to see. Yeah, nothing happens. But in case we want to see the person object or the person dictionary, we can print and we say user. Now let's run this again. Now we can see down here in our terminal, it prints out the first as Jimmy, the last Hendrix, and then the age. So that is it. Yeah, basically that is it. What you can say, you also create another one and just say a person, and let's say Zoom. So that's our first parameter. And let's say also, let's say, yeah, let's say I don't put in any age. Yeah? I don't put in any age. Let's run this to see something. Nothing's going to happen because I haven't yet printed it out. So let me print out user 2. So now you can see down here in our terminal that age is not appearing because we have defined a default value for age, which is none. Hence, this code wouldn't run. Code on number 3, the if here wouldn't run because it's falsy. It's false. Okay. So basically, that is what is happening in here. And when you look at 5, we can modify list by using when you pass a list to a function. Let's see. When you pass a list to a function, let me open this for you. Okay. Okay. When you pass a list to a function, the function can modify its parameter. Okay. So this is an example of what it's talking about. So Python. So the word Python here is just to tell you that this is a Python code. Yeah, it's like a string. So this is where we define the function, the modules, and it takes 2 parameters. So when you call in the function, you put in 2 arguments. Yeah. And then we have a while loop here. While unprinted. Unprinted is this. So we expect there to be, an argument when you call in it. If there is nothing, it's going to be false. And here, this while loop wouldn't run. But provided you put in an argument, this is going to happen. It says current equals pop. So we're going to keep popping. We're taking out of the end of the of whatever you put in. You see it? So we're passing in a list in a function. So what it's going to be doing to that list is going to be removing the last item in that list over there. Then it's going to pop it out. And then what it's going to do is going to save it in a variable called current. And then you see it. After that, it's going to printing the current. It's going to tell you it's printing out the last thing that it popped out because it's holding it in the variable called current. And I would say it's complete dot append. So in the while loop, it takes it out, pops it out for you to see what is gonna append to the completed. So what it does here is just like we are transferring one list to another. We have unprinted list, which is never not printed yet, and then we have completed. So all in all, at the end of the day, we're transferring. So you can see that append here. So we are appending that current value here into this here, into the completed. So let's see what it does next. So we have unprinted. So this is what we have here. This is outside of the function. So we've created this unprinted, and we have completed, which is empty. Yeah. So when we call the function, so you see over here, we call it a function, and we passing in these two arguments, these two. But we shouldn't confuse the name this one here with this. But it's nice they give it the same name so we understand what is happening here. But we could do a quick run in the inside our code so we see what is happening. Copy it in let's paste it in here. And our indentation is very important. So let's not forget that. So basically this is what is happening here. I think we've explained what is going on in there. Let's run the code to see the output. So you see it tells you here printing what is this? Pendant. Yeah. The reason why we see pendant first is because of the pop. It pops it out of the bottom, out of the last item, and then it becomes the first inside the append list. So that is what is happening here. And then the second one that pops out here in our terminal is the phone case. So that is a quite simple example. Yeah. So that is it. It returns. So basically, that is it for functions in Python. Thank you all for having to watch this video, and hoping to see you on the next one. So, and thank you, Arnold, for being here.
You're most welcome, man.
Yeah. So yeah, hope you subscribe, and then we see more videos that I'm gonna be posting on this channel. Thank you all.